There is a plain in Wiltshire, England. Most tourists walk right past the detail that matters. They see the stones, they photograph the stones, they read the placard, buy the souvenir, and leave. But hidden inside this site, carved into its geometry, encoded in its alignments, buried beneath its grass, is something that shouldn't exist. Not for 3000 BCE. Not even close. Stonehenge. Grid reference SU122422. First phase of construction, estimated at 3000 BCE. The iconic Sarsen ring, erected around 2500 BCE. Classified as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Visited by over 1.5 million people annually. Studied continuously for more than 200 years. And yet, as of today, scientists are still arguing about the most basic questions. Not the fringe questions, the foundational ones. Where did the stones come from? Why were they moved? Who was buried here? What was it actually for? And why did it stop? That's not a solved mystery with loose ends. That's an open case. If you want to follow this investigation, wherever it leads, subscribe now. We go where the evidence points, not where the textbooks stop. Here's where it gets strange. The bluestones, approximately 80 of them, each weighing between 2 and 5 tons, did not come from anywhere near Salisbury Plain. They were quarried in the Preseli Hills of Pembrokeshire, Wales, 150 miles away, across rivers, over mountains, through tidal straits. The mainstream explanation, for decades, was glacial transport, that Ice Age glaciers dragged themselves automatically, and the builders simply used what was already there. But a 2019 study, published in the Journal of Quaternary Science, used detailed glaciological modeling to demonstrate the ice sheets of that period never advanced far enough south to deposit stones at Salisbury Plain. That explanation has a problem, a serious one. They were carried deliberately by people, and in 2021, geologists from University College London pinpointed the exact extraction site in the Preseli Hills, Carn Godog, where specific pillars of spotted dolerite were pried from a natural rock face using antler picks, then shaped and moved, not random boulders collected from a riverbed, not stones found lying on the ground. Precision-selected geological pillars, chosen from one specific outcrop, transported 150 miles to a location where no natural equivalent exists. The question is not just how, it's why those specific stones. Here's the answer the mainstream hasn't fully processed. Acoustic tests conducted by researchers from the Royal College of Art revealed that the spotted dolerite bluestones ring, when struck, a clear, resonant, bell-like tone completely unlike the dead thud of ordinary rock. Other nearby stones in Wales do not produce this effect. The builders selected for it. Not similar stones, not inspired by them. The same acoustic signature from one specific quarry site chosen with geological precision. They weren't guessing. They were selecting. Clue 2. The alignment. Every summer solstice at 4:52 in the morning, the rising sun passes through the gap in the outer circle, travels over the heelstone, and strikes the altar stone at the center. For 2 centuries, this was interpreted as a simple solar calendar, a seasonal marker for agricultural communities. For decades, scholars dismissed the deeper geometry as symbolic. Then, modern astronomy found something that changed everything. Professor Clive Ruggles of the University of Leicester published analysis showing Stonehenge also encodes the 18.6-year lunar standstill cycle, the extreme northern and southern positions of the moonrise that repeat on an 18.6-year schedule, a cycle that, once understood, enables the prediction of lunar eclipses. The 4 station stones, rectangular markers forming a precise rectangle within the wider circle, are positioned exactly to frame these lunar extremes. The critical detail: this geometric relationship only works at the specific latitude of Stonehenge. Move the structure 50 miles north, 50 miles south, and the alignment breaks. Whoever chose that ground understood astronomy well enough to select a precise geographic coordinate to make the calculation work. Not a ceremony, a coordinate-locked instrument. Clue 3. The dead. Between 3000 and 2500 BCE, cremated human remains were deposited at Stonehenge continuously across 5 centuries. Over 60,000 individual bone fragments recovered. For generations, this was interpreted as a local burial ground for the surrounding community. Then, strontium isotope analysis arrived and revised the entire story. A 2018 study from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology analyzed isotopic signatures embedded in the cremated remains, chemical markers that reflect where a person spent their childhood, based on local geology. The results were unambiguous. Many of the dead were not from Wiltshire. They came from West Wales, repeatedly, across generations. People from the same region as the bluestones were traveling 150 miles to be buried at the monument built partly from stones taken from their homeland. The connection between the living, the dead, and the geology runs deeper than any existing model of Stonehenge fully accounts for. Now here is the mystery. Layered beneath that mystery, isotope studies from the same period found evidence in the ancient bone record of people arriving from as far as the Alps and the Mediterranean during the Bronze Age horizon around 2500 BCE. A 2019 ancient DNA study published in Nature documented massive genetic replacement across Britain around this time. The Beaker people, arriving from continental Europe, replaced the existing population in the space of a few generations. Stonehenge was already standing when they arrived, and they used it, which means the astronomical knowledge encoded in it was either transmitted or rediscovered, or simply recognized by an incoming population with different origins but similar observational frameworks. Not a local tradition, a knowledge system that survived contact with an entirely different culture. Clue 4 involves the structure itself. The lintels, the horizontal stones placed on top of the uprights, are secured with mortise and tenon joints, a woodworking technique, carved into stone. The rounded tenon on top of each upright fits into a carved hollow on the underside of the lintel, locking it in place. This is a level of engineering precision that requires templating, measurement, and structural planning across teams working on separate stones simultaneously. There is no known parallel for this technique in stone architecture anywhere else in the world from this period. Not similar, not inspired by it, unique. Here's where it gets strange again. The Sarsens, the large gray stones forming the outer ring, were transported from Marlborough Downs approximately 25 miles to the north. Each stone weighs between 15 and 25 tons. A 2020 study using portable X-ray fluorescence analysis matched specific trace element signatures in the Sarsen stones to a single area near West Woods in Wiltshire, narrowing the source from a broad regional guess to a specific forest location. Dozens of stones, selected from one grove, moved in a coordinated operation that must have required hundreds of workers and months of sustained logistics. And those workers were fed. A 2010 excavation at the nearby settlement of Durrington Walls, 8 kilometers from Stonehenge, uncovered the largest known Neolithic feast site in Britain. Tens of thousands of animal bones, midwinter pig feasts, evidence of people converging from across Britain during the winter solstice. Durrington Walls was the workers' village. Stonehenge was the monument they were building. And the connection between the two sites is a processional avenue leading directly from one to the other, running down to the River Avon. It was not built by a scattered, disconnected population scraping out a subsistence existence. It was built by an organized civilization with project management, supply chains, astronomical expertise, geological knowledge, and a symbolic system complex enough to demand physical stones from 150 miles away. And then, around 1500 BCE, it stopped. All activity at Stonehenge ceases abruptly. No new burials, no new construction, no modification of the existing stones. The processional avenue falls silent. Durrington Walls empties. Something ended. Not gradually. Not through slow cultural drift. Abruptly. And we have no written record, no monument, no archive explaining why. Climate data extracted from ice cores shows a significant cooling event between 1600 and 1500 BCE, likely connected to a major volcanic eruption, possibly Hekla in Iceland, possibly a Aegean source, a catastrophic environmental disruption that could have collapsed the social networks maintaining these massive ceremonial operations. It was sealed, it was mapped, and then it disappeared. Now, does this prove the most extreme version of the story? Probably not. There is no credible evidence of lost advanced technology or external intervention, but that doesn't make the discovery ordinary. The most grounded explanation is still extraordinary. A pre-literate, pre-metal people in Northwest Europe developed precision astronomy, long-distance geological sourcing, acoustic material science, and coordinated institutional logistics, and sustained it for over 1,000 years. That is not primitive behavior. That is a civilization operating on principles we have not yet fully classified. And if that's true, if the knowledge was this sophisticated and this organized, then something specific was lost when it ended. Not mythology, not folklore. A working system of knowledge that once predicted eclipses, moved mountains, and connected the living to the dead across an entire island. In 2014, the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes Project used ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry to map the area surrounding the monument. They found 17 previously unknown structures buried within a 3-mile radius. Shrines, long barrows, processional routes, pit circles, an entire buried sacred landscape that no excavation has touched. The structure we call Stonehenge is not a solitary monument. It is the surviving centerpiece of a buried complex whose full extent is still unknown. A 2021 application by a consortium of European researchers to extract core samples from the altar stone, the flat central slab whose exact geological origin remains unconfirmed, was denied by Historic England. The altar stone may not be Welsh. It may not be local Sarsen. Its source has never been definitively established, and the application to find out was rejected. The report was filed, the application was closed. The altar stone has not moved in 4,500 years. The final unanswered question is not logistical. It is not astronomical. It is civilizational. What ended at 1500 BCE, and what did the world lose when it did? The stones are still standing in that field in Wiltshire. The altar stone remains unanalyzed. The 17 buried monuments lie untouched beneath the grass. The acoustic properties of the bluestones have never been formally studied in situ. And every summer solstice, at 4:52 in the morning, the sun still rises through the heel stone exactly as it did 5,000 years ago, illuminating a stone whose origin we cannot confirm, in a place selected for reasons we are only beginning to recover, built by a civilization whose name we do not know and whose end we cannot explain. It is still there, still waiting, still sealed beneath a field that most people walk right past. If this investigation left you with more questions than answers, good. That's where the evidence leads. Like this video, subscribe to stay inside the investigation, and watch our next film on the buried megalithic landscape beneath Avebury, where the stones are twice the size, the archaeology is twice as strange, and the questions run considerably deeper.